As you continue to enjoy your meal, we're going to start the substantive part of the luncheon, and I would like to introduce Jim Hall, the president of World Strides. As you know, World Strides is a partner of the 100,000 Strong Foundation. It's the nation's leading educational exchange organization. And Jim has some interesting information, big news about an event we are working on together coming forward. He and World Strides have brought over 100 of our attendees here today from all over the country, schools big and small, and we welcome you, and we're so delighted to have you here. And so I will turn it over to Jim.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's really an honor to be a partner of the 100,000 Strong Foundation, and I'd like to thank them for allowing me to speak with you this afternoon. As Carola mentioned, we also do have about 100 U.S. universities and high schools who've traveled from around the country to join us today to explore opportunities for their students to study in China. And so I'd like to thank them for making the time and the effort to come here to Washington for today's event. We also have nearly 20 Chinese educators who are here as our guests who flew in from China 2 days ago, who are looking to bring their students to the United States, but they're also looking for opportunities to host U.S. students at their institutions. The mission of World Strides and the 100,000 Strong Foundation are very similar: to enhance young people's understanding of their world. While World Strides' mission is not limited to China, we certainly understand that the U.S.-China relationship is the most important international relationship of the 21st century. World Strides is the largest U.S. student educational travel company. We are also accredited as a school by the regional accrediting bodies in the United States that are recognized by the Department of Education. Unlike a traditional school, we don't have a building or classrooms. All of our instruction takes place out in the field. Our company was founded in 1967 by a middle school history and government teacher who wanted to give his students an experience outside the classroom, and so he brought them here to Washington, D.C. Each year, we serve about 300,000 students, from middle school to high school, as well as university and graduate students. We partner with about 5,000 universities, high schools, and middle schools around the world to support their students' curricular and extracurricular activities. Our students traveled to over 70 countries this past year, including about 2,500 who traveled to China. At the core of what World Strides does is experiential learning. Experiential learning theory was formalized by American educational theorist and Harvard-trained PhD, Dr. David Kolb. Experiential learning theory formalizes the understanding that students need more than classroom instruction. It asserts that well-rounded students must also have concrete, real-world experience. While experiential learning theory was formalized by Dr. Kolb, some of its roots go all the way back to ancient China and a Chinese proverb that was popularized in the United States by Benjamin Franklin. That proverb is this: "Tell me and I will forget. Show me and I may remember. Involve me and I will understand." This is really at the core of the 100,000 Strong mission, to involve young people in China and in the United States with each other now, to help them develop a much greater understanding of each other's cultures, histories, and dreams, so that the relationship of our two countries can be much stronger tomorrow. I can tell you from firsthand experience that perceptions of China change dramatically after you've been there and really engaged with Chinese people. My first memories of China go all the way back to my youth in elementary school during the height of the Cold War in the early 1970s. Obviously, the US and China have each changed significantly since then, but I still believe there is a general lack of understanding of China among the vast majority of Americans. Today, opinions of China are shaped by books, by the media, by conversations around the dinner table, and sometimes by politicians who create unnecessary fears to get votes. So if there are any politicians here today, I'm sure none of you ever do that. I've now been in China nearly 10 times. My very first experience in China was coming off the airplane in Beijing at the airport, and going through customs and immigration and being absolutely amazed that there were only 2 people in front of me in the line to get through the customs agent, and then to find that I was asked to rate the services that I received by the customs agents from not so satisfied to very satisfied. And the first impression that that gives you of China is that China truly welcomes foreigners and very specifically welcomes Americans, and I know that's true. And compare that to how we have customs and immigration in the United States. And when you come back here, and if you're lucky to be an American and you only have a 15-minute wait in that very special line that we reserve for foreigners who often, to me, it looks like have to wait about an hour to get into our country. One of my next impressions of China was waking up at about 2 o'clock in the morning with serious jet lag and heading out for a run around downtown Beijing at 3 o'clock in the morning and running around the Forbidden City and Tiananmen Square virtually alone in a city of over 20 million people and feeling absolutely comfortable, absolutely safe, and being totally amazed by the history and culture of their ancient country. However, some of the greatest experiences have been engaging in conversations with Chinese people. These conversations have helped me truly understand many controversial issues. In June of this year, World Strides hosted a panel discussion in Beijing with about 15 US presidential scholars and a similar number of top Chinese high school students. The topic of the discussion was a comparison of the American dream with the Chinese dream. While clearly there are differences, there are also an amazing number of similarities between the youth in China and the youth of the United States and what they dream about. Imagine the understanding between our countries that can be developed if this type of experience and even deeper experiences can be multiplied by hundreds of thousands of times over the next decade. Expanding these types of experiences is why we're really proud to be playing a leading role in the development of the 2014 US-China Student Summit. The US-China Student Summit is a 10-day program in late May and early June of 2014 being hosted at Peking University and Tsinghua University-affiliated high school. Universities, a few select high schools, will be leading delegations of US students to Shanghai and to Beijing to interact with Chinese students at the summit events. Students will also have the opportunity to enroll in up to 3 courses at Peking University following the summit, and each one will have 2 credit hours associated with it. This is a unique opportunity to build understanding and appreciation of culture, language, educational systems, and the economies of each other's countries. It's also an opportunity to build individual ties among students and to build an awareness among a new generation that we have a lot more in common than we do apart. We hope it will also spark US students' interests to return to China or to study China when they come back to the United States. We're so pleased with the enthusiasm and the support that we've received from the 100,000 Strong Foundation, the US State Department, the Chinese government, the Ministry of Education, Peking University, Tsinghua Affiliated High School, the China Education Association for International Exchange, and the nearly 100 universities and high schools who are here today who have already expressed an interest in building a US student delegation. I'd like to finish by having everyone imagine the world in 30 or 40 years. If the 100,000 Strong, or maybe I should say when the 100,000 Strong Foundation is successful in its mission. I can imagine pushing my walker through the nursing home and stopping to read the newspaper or whatever electronic device is in use at the time. And in that paper, there's an article that talks about the strength of the US-China relationship. And the article describes the US-China relationship as being as strong as the US-United Kingdom relationship of the 20th century. And it also talks about the 2 most powerful countries in the world working together to solve the world's problems. I believe that's possible, and I believe that everyone in this room can help to make that happen. So whether you're a student, a high school principal, a university professor, a US or Chinese government official, or you work for a nonprofit organization like the 100,000 Strong Foundation, or you work for a company like World Strides, or one of the other corporate partners of the 100,000 Strong Foundation, we can all play a part. And so to reiterate the final words of that Chinese proverb, involve me, and I will understand. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jim. Now I'd like to invite Darren Walker, who is the president of the Ford Foundation, and the student panelists up to the stage. Darren has a long career in philanthropy and education, and he, through his leadership and that of the supporting team at the Ford Foundation, we have really been able to build this organization into something that's having real impact on the ground. We could not have done this event or any of the other programming that we've been working on over the past 10 months without the active support of the Ford Foundation. And Darren, thank you very much, and thank you for being here today.
So while this distinguished panel of young people take their seats, let me say that today and this session is going to dazzle you. Because if there is any question about the future, the relationship of our two nations, China and the United States, what you're about to hear, these amazing, brilliant young people are going to inspire you and motivate you and make you very hopeful for our future. So please take your seats. So as Carola said, I serve as president of the Ford Foundation, and we are delighted to be a supporter of this remarkable program. And the Ford Foundation has a long and enduring history with the nation of China. We were fortunate enough in 1988 to be invited by the Chinese people to be the first philanthropy to open an office in Beijing, and have worked to support human capital, human capacity building in the areas of the law, social sciences, medicine, and to really support people-to-people engagement and the idea of people-centered growth, which means that we cooperate more, we collaborate more, and hopefully we understand each other more. So we're going to hear this afternoon from these young people about their experience in collaboration and learning and understanding each other. So I'll start by just asking each of you to do a very brief intro. Tell us who you are, where you're in school, and where you were and what you learned in 3 minutes. Starting on the end there.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having us. My name is Justin Halpern. I'm an alumni of the Teach for China program, which is a nonprofit focused on fighting educational inequality in rural China by bringing top graduates from Chinese and American universities to live and work and teach for 2 years in a local rural community. And I learned quite a lot from this experience. Before I left, I had no Chinese language ability. I had no cultural background in China, and I still thought that General Chow's was an actual Chinese dish. So after I graduated, I moved to Southwest Yunnan, and what was really great about this program for me is that it enabled me to work side by side with young Chinese leaders as well as my students and the local teachers, and to really gain a deep cultural understanding. And I was able to really build meaningful relationships and be integrated into a community that was 8,000 miles from the one that I grew up in. And that was a really powerful experience for me. It has inspired me to stay involved and in the long term in the US-China relationship. And I learned Chinese. I'm now studying at Georgetown School of Foreign Service in the Masters of Science Foreign Service program. I am still involved with another nonprofit founded by Teach for China alumni called Education Insight, focusing on expanding access to eye care in rural China, and I intend to join the Foreign Service after graduation. Yes. So that's my story. Yay.
Thank you. My name is Charles Chen. I'm actually a student here. I'm studying international relations and business administration. I'm a junior. I actually spent half of my life in China and half of my life in America. So I actually went back to China during second grade, and I studied from primary school all the way to high school. And really surprisingly, I actually met my principal for one of my high schools right here. He is Mr. Xu at that table over there. I'm really, really happy to see him right here. And thank you very much for 100K Foundation for inviting him here. My future goal is to be either a diplomat or an international businessman to promote China and American relations. So I'm trying to experience as much Chinese and American culture as I can in both countries. I'm also studying abroad in Japan next semester to experience Japanese culture. So I really want to integrate the two powerful Asian countries and the US in my future goals. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Benjamin Brooks, and I'm originally from Houston, Texas, but currently I go to Georgetown University, where I'm a sophomore, so I guess that makes me one of the youngest ones on the panel. First, I would like to talk about my social economic background, because that's very important, because people like me usually aren't supposed to be in this kind of position where I am right now, because I grew up in an area that's low income, not very good education, and I turned out like how I am right now. And
Very good, very good.
Thank you, thank you. So initially my interests weren't really international. I was trying to be like everybody else, not really focus on my education, but I had that support system with my family that like focused on me doing well in school, so I kind of fed off of that. So I like towards like the end of my elementary school days and like in middle school, I started being more interested in my own education, and I wanted to broaden my horizons. So upon attending high school, that's when I actually had the opportunity to study Chinese. And upon studying Chinese, my first teacher said I should really go to China. So I never really considered it before that, but I started thinking I wanted to broaden my horizons, so why not give it a chance? But at the time I was a freshman, so there weren't really that many opportunities for me. But the following year, I was able to go to China with a program called Americans Promoting Study Abroad, which is APSA for short. And they took me to China, and there was where I actually got to see a different culture, a completely different culture that I never thought I would ever see in my life, coming from where I come from. And after that, I learned a little bit more Chinese, obviously, but I also learned that the people that we think are just, like, we put them in a category as others, like we otherize these people, but they're actually like, they're similar to what we are. They're people. So like we have similar interests, similar hobbies, there's things that we can share in common. So I learned this, and this made me more interested in learning about cultures around the world, more cultures around the world. So the following year I went to Cambodia. So this allowed me to be more interested in the Asian region specifically, and also of cultures that aren't American. So that's why I wanted to attend Georgetown University, so I can have an international experience. So I applied and I got in, thank God. And that's where I'm currently at right now. I'm in the School of Foreign Service, a sophomore, so I'm still beginning, but hopefully I'll be able to maybe become a diplomat, but also try to help people in my community to do the same things that I have done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Lakeisha Ford. To take it a step further, my family is from Jamaica, and they migrated to this country in pursuit, obviously, of the American dream. So I, too, I never dreamed of going to China. Neither did my family. They were actually terrified. But to make a long story short, I attended Spelman College for my undergraduate studies, and it was then that I traveled to China for a summer with an organization called Black Study Abroad. I was encouraged by my African Diaspora in the World professor, Dr. James Gillum, who incorporated a lot of Chinese culture into our lessons, which is very unconventional for this course. He suggested and really just pushed that I travel to China So I took heed to his suggestion and absolutely loved my experience. Today, I am a current second-year grad student here at American University in the International Communications program, focusing on public diplomacy and international development. That's a mouthful. My career aspirations are to become a public diplomacy foreign service officer, and my experience in China has definitely informed and shaped my aspirations. When I traveled to China, I got to understand a different culture, obviously, and really just understand myself as an American in a different context, culturally, socially, intellectually, just on a lot of different levels. And what was also salient in my experience was the lack of representation of African American women and just overall the different cultures that are represented and make up the US. So that has definitely inspired me to become a future Foreign Service officer.
You've come to the right room.
Hello, everyone. My name is Zhan Jianan, and I'm currently a second-year PhD student at Johns Hopkins School of Medicine. I think that makes me the only student with a background in engineering here. I came to America in 2010, that is like 3 years ago. And before that, I did my undergrad in Zhejiang University, which is located in Hangzhou. It's a beautiful city. For those of you who have not been there, strongly recommend it, right? And as I said, in 2010, I came to Johns Hopkins University and did study in tissue engineering, where we aimed at to culture the artificial tissue to implant it into the injuries of the human body. And then in 2012, I finished my master program and then continued to study in the PhD program. So my goal here would be to develop some biomedical engineering products so to benefit people from both China and America. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. It's a very pleasure to be here. And my name is Fang. And I'm now current third-year PhD student at University of Virginia in economics. And before that, I was in China and finished my undergraduate, my college in Peking University. So I think there should be some professors from Peking University today here. And my major is actually in industrial organization, which is focused on marketing and advertising and also the firm's activities. What I learned here, okay, I learned economics, of course, and also I learned drinking beer. I think young people like beer so much in parties. Yeah, and also I think I learned how to think. So think more creative and also think about the world economic issues from both Asian and Western perspectives, and also to think out of the box. So I think that is what I learned most. And I also hope to work on and make my own contributions to US and China economic activities in the future, either in public policies or some private sectors. And that is my goal in the future. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Xixiang Jia. It's really a great honor to be here today. And right now I'm studying Georgetown University, studying the program of public policy. It's a master program. Before I came to America last year, I did a bachelor degree in Australia, in Melbourne. I did my major was accounting and finance. Actually, I come from China, a very ancient city. The name of the city is called Xi'an. And I think a lot of people know this city because it was the first capital of China. If we say China have 5,000 years of history, our city has been the capital for like 2,000 years. So in this city, you can really see a lot of foreigners, and it's really, in the last 20 years, you can see how the China and foreign relationship developed. When I was a kid, there was not so many foreigners in the street. And one time I see the foreigners and looks tall and with big nose and bright eyes. My parents say, okay, just stay away from them. Looks afraid. But for me as a kid, I have always curious about something new, and I'm really interested in these foreigners. And also in my middle school, the class was really tough and boring. The subject I like the most is the geography class because I see a lot of different countries and I just can do a lot of dreams. I dream that one day I can go to like countries in Africa like Zimbabwe or Ghana or South Africa. I can open a gold mine over there. And also I dream one day I come to America to do drifting in the Colorado River. And also I really want to go to America because all the Chinese people told me in America the moon is more brighter than the Chinese moon. It's just America is much more richer than we do. So after my study in Australia, I decided next station I want to come to America. And after I come to America, I do a lot of student activities that can help both American and Chinese students to know more about each other. So right now I serve as the president of the Georgetown Chinese Student and Scholars Association. We really did a lot of activities like in the Halloween, we did a Halloween party, which was really big one. We invited about, I think, 400 people. All the Chinese people come to a bar called Lima Lounge and Restaurant. Every Chinese people, they dress up like zombies, like vampires. And they come together and they say, "Oh, thank you very much. You helped us to know more about American culture," because. Because in China, we also do have a festival about the dead, but it's just to go to the tomb of our ancestors. It's not a celebration. It's like more like to go there to cry and yeah. But in America, this festival is fascinating. It's really good. And also tomorrow, we are also going to have activity. We invite 35 future ambassadors from the State Department of America. They come to Georgetown University. We're gonna have a one-to-one conversation to them. We also have 35 Chinese students. We sit together, we communicate with in Chinese to help both sides to learn more about each other. So that's it. For me, I really appreciate my time to be in America, especially in Washington. Here, I know a lot of great people. I have great chance to grow as a Chinese student studying in America. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. And we're already hearing about what you've learned about American culture, beers, bars, parties. But you're also a great student, so we won't forget the academics. But you are learning that cultural phenomenon here calling work hard and play hard. It sounds like you've assimilated to that very, very quickly.
Hi, my name is Luke Ousley. I am a graduate student here at American University. So Huan Ying, welcome all of you to our home here. I'm studying International Development Management. That's 国际发展, and really excited to be here on this panel today. I guess I'll follow up with a comment you guys mentioned about the beer drinking culture here. For anyone who's been to China, I think you would agree with me, beware the baijiu, right? Yeah. But anyway, a little bit about myself. I was born in Tokyo and grew up in China, spent during the 90s, and had that opportunity. Real grateful to my parents for that. It was neat to see all those kids that were about my age when I went to China that were singing in Chinese, and think about the opportunities that they'll have as well. Yeah, what I wanted to share is just how grateful I was and how the opportunity growing up in China has impacted and influenced like everywhere I've been. I mean, there's Chinese everywhere around the world to interact with, and I've seen that it's opened up really neat opportunities. Like I taught in Ecuador, I had Chinese students there that were in the dorm I worked with, or I studied abroad in South Korea. Well, there were some of my Chinese classmates that were there. Or more recently, last few years, I was out in a small town, rural Indiana, and it was interesting. Earlier, we were talking about how do you get Chinese programs in areas like that. Our local high school had a Chinese program for the last few years, and part of that stemmed from having a mayor who was really proactive and had been to China about 10 times, building those relationships, the guanxi. And so I was fortunate to get this neat opportunity to help out in that role, having grown up in China, to be kind of an international project manager for our city. I'll help welcome exchanges, business culture, both to our city, also to the local universities, and facilitate some of that. So right now I'm studying development management, and if there's any of you out there who, this is my job pitch here, are in that field, and particularly in the rising role of China in development, and the potential and possibilities for collaboration, something I'm really interested in learning more about. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. So now that we've gotten the introductions out of the way, Lakeisha, what did you experience that surprised you in the sort of people-to-people experience that you had? We often go to a foreign land and most of us arrive with certain assumptions, certain stereotypes. Did you learn anything that really challenged some of those stereotypes about the Chinese people?
So I heard two questions. The first one was what did I learn, or what shocked me when I was in China? I can recollect back to one experience. We were traveling to Tiananmen Square, and there's a wide variety of different people visiting. But what resonated from that experience was, I remember we were on the steps, and there was a group of Chinese visitors. I think they were from just a rural village or something of the sort. They were fascinated by a group of African American students who had really American accents. So they came to us and said, where are you from? And we were telling them America, and they said, no, Africa. No, you're from Africa. And I said, no, America. We're African American. And it took time for them to even fathom the fact that there are Black people who live in America. That was shocking to me, to answer your first question. And they asked to take pictures, and they wanted to, they shook my hand, and they, touched my skin, and the normal person would be very uncomfortable and just, upset about it. But I really saw that as a learning opportunity, an opportunity for them to understand who we are as Americans and how diverse we are. So I was open to it. It was a little bit uncomfortable, but I felt it was worth doing, because if I did not step into that position to teach or even to share, what other opportunity would they have to learn this? So that was my first experience, and something that what was the second question?
Something that you, in terms of the experience, learned about yourself.
Yes. So I saw myself differently as an American when I traveled to China. This was my first time on that side of the world, and just to be not necessarily bombarded, but introduced to the different perspectives about Americans. From what I knew, we were loved around the world. People wanted to dress like us. This is based on the media and what you see. People wanted to be a lot like Americans. I was very shocked to see that there were people who had contested views about America. And that was my first time kind of just doing a lot of reflection about America and our policies and the way we treat others and just the way it's received abroad. So that was something that was very shocking as well. Just the perspective about Americans and the diverse views.
Great. Benjamin.
Yep. Oh, the same question?
Yeah.
Oh. All right, I would have to say I had a similar experience about the whole them not seeing African Americans before. I remember one time at the Summer Palace, it was a group of Chinese people just staring at me, just wanting to take a picture. And I remember it was this little girl who wanted to take a picture with me, and I said, sure. So I take a picture with her, and right after I take the picture, it's this big man just pushes her out the way. He says, no, I want a picture with him next. So it was, it was kind of crazy. So that was one thing that surprised me, and that was probably the most memorable, one of the most memorable moments of that trip. And you said, what did I learn about myself? That's the second question. I learned, like, it's great to be uncomfortable in a situation, because I know it may seem kind of weird to say, but when you're uncomfortable, that you're forced to learn something that you're not used to or accustomed to. So that gave me the opportunity to be open about Chinese culture, about what they think and how they feel about certain things. And I learned that, like I said in my introduction, that they're just like us in a way. Because I remember we were playing basketball, like just the American students, and then the Chinese kids walked over and they wanted to play basketball too, but there were two different goals, so they went on one goal and we were on the next goal. So me and my friends decided to join them in the game. So we didn't know if they spoke English or not, so they told me to go over there and ask them. So I was like, I walked up very slowly because I was kind of nervous because my Chinese level wasn't that good, so I just walked up very slowly, and I said, 你会不会说英文吗? And they turned around, and I said, of course, yeah, we speak English. I'm like, what? So that kind of surprised me, and we had a conversation, spoke English to each other and Chinese to each other as well, and played basketball, and had a regular fun time. So I learned that they're not too different from what we are, and they're also want to have fun, even though we have the perception that they're hardworking all the time. They're studying from day in, day out, but they're also they like to have their fun. So that's another thing that I learned, and I learned that it's okay to be uncomfortable. So
yeah, that's really good.
So I would say when I first came back to US, the most question I was been asked is, do you know how to hack a computer? Of course not. I don't know how to hack NASA. I don't know how to hack our school system. But yes, that's the most question I was asked. And also, do you eat dog meat? Of course not. I don't eat dog. I love dogs. Dogs are an immense friend. So.
Where were you, Charles? Did you experience? Who was asking you these things?
I don't know. Well, some of the students here, but it's really surprising. It's really surprising. But I came from Shanghai, so I actually experienced a lot of foreign cultures in Shanghai. When I just came back to America, the most striking fact that I learned is I'm actually not American. I am actually not Chinese. This is really hard. It's really hard for me to position myself in both cultures. When I'm in the Chinese culture, I don't really look like a Chinese because I have some elements of the American culture. But when I hang out with my American friends, I don't look like American. I don't look like American because my English is not that good. I don't know a lot of pop culture about America. So it's really, really hard to position myself in these two cultures. But I learned that the two cultures are really opening to actually teach me what the culture is. How can it be used to these cultures? So after 3 years here, I learned a lot about, caught up a lot about American pop culture, how to speak properly, how to write an email. These, a lot of small things, but a lot of friends taught me about, and I actually can see someone is stalking right there who's taught me how to write an email. But yeah, but when I just went back to China, a lot of people asked me, so are you American? So what do Americans think about China? Do they think that we are all communists? We don't have freedom of speech. We don't. The government suppress all of our rights. But this is actually really different now in China because China is opening itself to the world, and especially online, there are a lot of netizens, which are internet users in China. They speak freely in the internet about government's policy, how do governors do, are they corrupted, and a lot of food safety issues in China as well. So I think China changed a lot, and America is more open to Chinese culture nowadays. So that's what I experienced in both countries. Thank you.
Justin.
My experience was, I think before I went, I had pretty much been brainwashed by a bunch of different media broadcasts or even the regular references to China, and I went with tried to make a really blank slate before I would go, tried to wipe that off. And what I really discovered is that there really wasn't a monolithic China as Benjamin brought in. It's not really one monolithic other. There are many different facets of many different peoples in China and many different views and many different areas. And I got to travel a lot to travel around to many of them. My main experience was in a small rural community, and one of the biggest things that I learned from that is I expected, before I went there, going back to expectations, I expected to feel like an other because I was posing them as an other in my mind. I expected to feel on the outside, but they were from day one inviting me to come sit, drink tea, to come eat with them. The greeting that I always got was "Ni吃饭了吗?" And that was serious. Have I eaten yet? Because if not, you're coming to my house and you're going to be eating with me tonight. And it was I saw a very caring side and a very welcoming and open side. And I think that was surprising to me, but in the end, it's really not that surprising because that's what I would do in my own community here in America. So, yeah.
Great, thank you. So, please, what did you learn about America that surprised you, that maybe shocked you?
Yeah.
And what did you learn about yourself in this context?
Okay. So I remember I was once having a conversation with one of my friends about marriage, actually, because at that time she was preparing for her wedding. So I asked her several questions, among which there was this one. I asked her, where did you and your fiancé bought your house? And it was a little bit surprised to me that they were saying they did not prepare a house for their marriage. And for most couples in America, they do not think of buying a house, owning a house is a basic element for their marriage. But in China, this situation is totally different. You know, in China, it's widely accepted that getting married means settling down. And if you want to settle down, a house is a basic element. Even if the young couple is not financially capable to afford a house, their parents will take over the responsibility. And I think this means that there's a difference in the understanding of marriage and similar stuff between the people in China and America. But actually, I think since that we are in a different country, it is expected that there will be some experiences, there will be some differences in how we look at problems. So I think it's just a matter of how to get used to it and how to deal with it.
Please, fine.
Okay. So I think the U.S. shocked me in a lot of ways. So first, when I came here, I found that I cannot stop a taxi on road. I have to call them. So that is quite different from China. And also, like the place, UVA is in Charlottesville, which is a very pretty town. And I think the tallest building is only like 3 or 4 floors. So that is very different from my expectation about the US. So I think from this experience is a way for me to know more about the US and also like how American people think of China and the Chinese. I think the very special thing that American people think about Chinese, especially in our department, because I mean economics. So people think Chinese students should be very, very good at math. And sometimes they think we are quite shy and we don't want to answer questions in class. So maybe for some, to some degree, it is right, but we are also heterogeneous individuals. So I think it's better to break this kind of stereotype of Chinese people or American people, but to treat different people differently. And that is what I learned about myself and also from these experiences.
So do you just raise your hand a lot now and
Yeah.
be like an
I want to
aggressive
compete
American?
with my American classmates.
Well, yeah, for my personal experience, American absolutely is totally different from China. Like, let's talk about the eatings. And when we go to the restaurant in America, and I always find it's really dull to order the food because all the time you only have beef, pork, and chicken, and that's all. But in China, it's interesting. You can have any different kind of meat. And when I talk about these issues with all my American fellows, they always ask, "Why are you Chinese people so weird? You eat everything." But I don't know. This is the way I was raised up. Yeah. And also, this is about eating. And also about some people think Chinese people are shy. They don't like to answer the question in the class. Maybe one reason I can give is like we always need to put up the hand and wait for the teacher to call you to answer the question. But in my Georgetown class, always like it's 15 people in the class, and many of the American students, when they answer the question, another student will say, "Oh, what you think is wrong. My point of view is blah blah blah." But for me, I want to say, "Hey, teacher, let me say something." But the teacher, I can't wait for my line, and then another person just pick up, another person pick up. For me. Yeah, they think I'm shy because I don't have a point. But this is not the case because in China, the class works totally different way.
In what way does it work? Because in some level you're saying what I think, which is Americans can be very rude.
Yeah.
And so you would suggest that we need to learn to queue up and be patient.
For me, that's totally a culture stuff. It's not good to judge which one's right or not right. It's just everywhere is correct. I think so. Yeah. Anyway, the study experience in America is so good. It helped me to understand there's different values, different point of views, and in the future, help me to be more open. Yeah, I think these two countries need to be more open to each other.
Great. We're going to go to some questions in a moment, and we're going to mix it up here, but please.
Yeah, well, just to echo some of the points you all have made. I definitely resonate with what Charles was saying about feeling like you have your feet in both worlds. You know, when I was in China, I miss America. When I was in America, miss China. You know, where are you from? Well, do you really want the long answer? You know, the Midwest or China. Depends on who I'm talking to. But yeah, some things I both learned about and appreciate about China, and then also how it's impacted me. I mean, China is such a rich culture, and you know, learning about listening better, learning about. I mean, we're all having lunch here together. You know, how many times you go to a Chinese restaurant or a friend's house, and there's not less than 9 dishes. You know, they love to entertain and are very hospitable, and that's something I definitely learned and appreciated. Even you know, sometimes it's hard going to families that you know may have made a lot less, and you can see the sacrifice that they had to, you know, put a lot on the table. One thing we were actually talking with Xishang about earlier is the gift giving, and you know, our family says you can never outgive the Chinese. It's like you give something, and then something bigger, you know. But see, it's important to maintain that and you know bring that, but you know, realizing sorry, we'll never be able to improve on that.
So, from the Americans, what could we learn from the Chinese as a culture that would help improve our society?
Guess I'll start. The first thing that comes to mind, the first thing that comes to mind for me is the integration of the concept behind community. I think we know about it here in the United States, and I think that's a concept that's taken for granted. I think, based on my experience, I feel like in reference to the Guangxi, like the Chinese really stick together. I think that's something the US could definitely learn from a bottom-up level in regards to grassroots efforts to whatever it may be. If you're mentoring girls for self-esteem or helping them get through college, whatever it is, I think we can do a better job of creating stronger ties with the community. And I think that is probably one of the most important things I think we could learn from them.
Great.
My answer's,
please,
my answer's pretty similar, but it's more focused on one-on-one interactions. What I've learned when I was in China is that they like to be closer than we usually are, because we, in America, we appreciate our own personal space, but I guess metaphorically speaking, like their closeness, it kind of mirrors their actual closeness when they, like their community-centered kind of culture. It kind of mirrors that because they're always close to each other, holding hands, talking to each other, like with this much space in between each other. Like, I'm not saying we should do that in America. I'm just saying we should at least have the same kind of idea behind it, that we should be closer with each other, that we should have these kind of conversations that are like deep within our heart, and also appreciate one another as one of us, really. So I mirror the whole community aspect of Chinese culture, and I think that's one of the most important things that we don't necessarily have in America. And also, from my personal background, although I'm saying this, like in the South, like specifically, we're a lot closer than I've noticed that people on the East Coast are. And I've noticed many different community effects of this. I know that a lot of people, like you walk by somebody on the sidewalk, you don't say anything, but in Houston or like any other Texas city, you have a long conversation with somebody you don't even know. And that kind of makes you feel like you're a part of something bigger. And I think that's pretty much what we need around the whole entire country, so we can be able to come together and make decisions for the betterment of the whole country rather than just being your individual self and only caring about yourself. So I think the community aspect is really important.
Okay. Charles. No, Charles, you.
Oh, okay. In my opinion, I think what the US and China should learn from each other is the individualism versus harmony, which is, I think both cultures are good, but they should learn from each other. For example, in America, people respect their a person's thoughts, their opinions, and they think that personal being really individualism is really good. So, for example, Obamacare. So, the Democrat versus the other is always debating about this. I don't think it's really effective. But in China, the society is based on harmony. It's people agree on the same thing, and it like policies, they process really quick. So I think this is what U.S. should learn from China. But still, I'm not saying that harmony is good. I also think that individualism is good when you want to express your own ideas about issues, political issues, foreign issues, and so on. So I think both countries should learn from each other and actually implement them together.
Great. Justin.
I'm going to take this question sort of as to what I personally learned, because I'm not 100% sure I'm qualified to speak on behalf of all Americans or all Chinese. I think one of the things that I learned in my experience was really to be patient and to take care in the process of planning something and knowing that things can go wrong. When things do go wrong, like you're setting up for an eye doctor to come to your school and the power goes out. When you are looking to go into town, but the road there's been a landslide. I learned a bit of crisis management and knowing that when something is out of your control, there's 没办法. There's nothing you can do about it. Sometimes you need to just focus on what you can control. And I think I see a lot of my classmates in America, and I think that's something that people could really benefit from learning. Yeah.
From your perspective, what could the Chinese people, the Chinese culture learn from the American experience?
So, so first of all, I would like to say something following Ben's opinion. So I think there are definitely different standards between Chinese and American with respect to like privacy and showing closeness. Because, for example, in China, it is very common for us to ask our friend, how's your income and how many money have you earned this year? You know, it is just a way of showing our closeness and friendship. But even before I came to America, I was taught that you should never ask anyone like how much money they earn. It's very rude. And I was, you know, like, yeah. And after I came to America, I really dare not ask any questions of this kind. And just like, I'm pleased that Ben pointed this out, and I think it's very benefit for people from both countries if Americans could open up this part a little bit. And
we should just talk about money more openly.
Maybe not only this, maybe yeah, something, but something, definitely something like that, right? And about China, what China could learn from America, I would say something about like scientific field. Like we know that America is regarded as the top one country in the number of top class scientists, and among these top class scientists, a lot of them are coming from other countries. So we can think of it like, can we like reform the or upgrade the relative policies a little bit so that the China could attract the top class researchers from other countries a little bit more to be more accepted. I think that's something I think.
Immigration policy.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, immigration policy and also like attracting the elites from other countries.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you. Hi.
Okay, so I want to make 2 points on what Chinese should learn from America. And I think the first one is about the environment. I think American people value they emphasize the protection of environments more than Chinese people. So I think this is very important for the sustainability of economics and also development. I think people care about whether they should use like plastic bags more or like paper bags more, or they want to use more environmental friendly products. So I think from my understanding and from what I see, I think that is very good merits of American people. And another one is about education. I think education here in the US is very good at find out the potential of students and encourage students to find out their own interests instead of just doing better in exams or the way in China. I think that is very important for career of research or working other careers. I think that is very important to find out your interest first. So I think that is another way that Chinese should learn from America.
Well, thank you. Yeah, of course, China can learn a lot from America because America is a teacher of the whole world. Yeah, one thing that is really interesting is we should learn that in America, when you go to a dinner or business dinner, sometimes you don't need to drink too much. But in China, it's really hard every time you have to drink with your friend, because the friend will tell you how, if you think our relationship is deep, you have to drink as much and show me the relationship. And also, when you drink with your managers, the manager wants you to drink more because that shows your loyalty. All the time when you go to China, you see the mid-aged people, they all have a really big belly because they just drink too much beer and baijiu. You people may laugh here, but actually it's a really big problem in China because we Chinese people, we don't like to drink that much, but we have those kind of culture and tradition. We know that is bad for our health, but we have to do that because people won't allow you not to do that. Another thing that I think China should learn from America is like, American people always follows the rules, but in China there's always two rules. One is the law, the regulation. Another one is a hidden rule, which is the 关系 or context. Some people see here. Like when I was a kid in the primary school, like my parents may give gifts to the teachers, just want me to have a better seat in the class. I can sit in the front because the teachers have more focus on the students who sit in the front. And if I do something bad, the teacher will tell me not to do it. So even though I'm a kid, the parents always do this kind of stuff. So I always see my parents do this, and when I grow up, I always think it's better to give gifts to your manager, to your teachers, to everyone. Just want others to care more about you. So this is a culture. People say a lot of corruption perhaps happens in China, but it just happens like this kind of culture. All the kids see the parents do things like this. So I really hope that one day we can maybe change our culture from this to more like a rule-based country that will make everyone doing their own business much more easier. Yeah, this is what I think China should learn from America.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I suppose the quick answer is, the U.S. and school, as far as education, can be focused more on the maths and the sciences, and in China maybe some more on the critical thinking or the creative thinking and problem solving. A lot of products now are made in the U.S., or they will be maybe once it's produced. More manufacturing back there, but designed in the U.S., made in China. But I think more and more products are designed in China as well, and so that's definitely a testament to that shift in thinking. And one thing that I think I really appreciate much, and that's what we talked about earlier, was the respect, and not just respect for your elders or teachers, but also for other people's perspectives. I think a lot of times in this country we tend to argue for the sake of arguing, but not out of respect, and not really trying to find out what the other person is thinking. Thank you.
So we're gonna start to wrap here, but I want to just ask you. I mentioned to the audience that they were going to leave feeling very hopeful about the relations between our two nations. Are you hopeful? And if you are, why? Specifically, why, Lakeisha, are you hopeful? And if you're not, tell us why.
Okay, I am very hopeful. I'm very hopeful and optimistic about the entire push towards getting Americans to be open culturally to China and just globally overall. We talk about globalization. We talk about globalization on different levels, but this time to focus it on something that is unconventional, or on a country that is unconventionally pushed, China. I think that will help us as a country to be more open, and just kind of beef up intercultural relations, understanding each other. I think that is the foundation of a lot of diplomatic relations, a lot of policies, a lot of just overall improvements. Nelson Mandela said something which always speaks to me. He said, "May your choices be a reflection of your hopes and not your fears." And the fact that we are here today in a room from different institutions, from all walks of life, moving to push Americans to study China and be interested in China, I think that's a reflection of our hope. So that also mirrors the way I feel. So I'm hopeful.
Thank you. Benjamin.
I'm also very hopeful, mainly because of organizations like 100,000 Strong Initiative and also the study abroad programs that have increasingly been trying to recruit more students to go to China. And also I've met, I've spoken a little bit to the Chinese emerging students a little bit. That also gives me a lot of hope because they're starting young and the children are the future, not to be cliche, but the children definitely are the future and they will be the leaders of tomorrow. So once they're in power, they'll be able to foster these relationships with other countries, especially China. And they'll have that idea, they have that that knowledge of the other culture. So that knowledge of the other culture carrying on to the higher levels, the political levels, it gives me a lot of hope to believe that the relationship between China and America will improve, definitely.
Similar to what Ben and Lakeisha said, I have hope as well because a lot of study abroad programs that American students go abroad to China and Chinese students go abroad to America. And this will greatly improve communications between the two countries. And having more communication means more understanding, which means a brighter future for the two countries. In addition, China is opening itself more to the Western country, which makes me think that it's even brighter. For example, the Shanghai Free Economic Zone, which is a great improvement of Shanghai opening its own economy to the world. And I think there's going to be more cities in China, such as Shanghai, to open its market to foreign companies to do investment in China. And I also think that America is American companies are will be focused. So more American companies will go to China, excuse me, to invest in China, to do business in China, which will even improve the communications between businesses. Thank you.
Great, Justin.
I am very hopeful about the U.S.-China relationship moving forward. And this stems from my experience working together with Chinese nationals, with Chinese graduates, with local Chinese teachers. Together we can identify a problem. You can say, there are no students in my school who have glasses, but I know that at least 20% of them need them. You can get together with Chinese and American students, Chinese and American teachers. You can work together with the local education bureau, get a local glasses supplier. You can come together and say this is a problem and we want to solve it, and you can solve it. That's one of the things that I did while on the ground, and I believe that it's a really good example of how Americans and Chinese can work together when we identify the problem and we come to the table and talk about it. I'm really hopeful that we are going to have to work together. Our two nations are going to have to work together to solve the world's problems. I believe that the only way that we can really, truly, sustainably move forward is together, hand in hand, together. I believe that we can build the trust necessary, and I believe that we will.
Thank you.
All right. I think a lot of conflict comes when there are two parties that don't know each other well and don't see eye to eye. And I think just the fact that there's so many Chinese that are studying in the U.S. or have over the last 20 years, and more Americans studying in China. I mean, we're getting roots and getting friendships built. You know, increasing the Guanxi network. And you know, when you know someone, you know, like all of us have conversations with people, and someone might be talking about, you know, China or a misunderstanding, and it's like, no, actually, that's not correct. Or, you know, it's like brother and sister. It's not just someone I don't know. And so I think that the more friendships that are being built, it'll be harder to have some of those conflicts.
I think in the future, China and the US are going to be very interesting partners. They hate each other, but they will also love each other. Right now, America is the rule makers in the international level, because all the trade laws, all the laws, American have a huge influence on that. But China is a newcomers to this area, and China a lot of times China just not gets used to that. China think maybe, okay, I also have a huge influence on that. Why should I always follow your rules? So in the future, there's gonna be a lot of competition between these two countries. But anyway, these two countries still are going to be friends because each of them will need the other one. China provide a huge market to America, and also America provide a huge market to China. China can get a lot of technology knowledge from America. So even though sometimes people treat another part as an enemy, but they still learn a lot from each other. So I think in the future, the program like this help us to understand more to each other, and it just help us to be friends, help us to make more cooperations. I think China and America work together. It's gonna build the future of the humankind.
Yes, thank you. Thanks.
Okay. I think I'm quite hopeful. So my evidence from my experiences here have proved that, because only me can make a difference in the relationship between U.S. and China. I see what I change people's opinions and what contribution I have made in my surroundings. I have led my friends in the U.S. to know more about China. So I think in the future, many people like me will make the whole world better. And I think China and the U.S. are the two most powerful countries right now. And when we look back the history, we know that only collaboration will make the whole world better. And I think these two countries' collaboration will also lead the whole world go to a higher level.
Thank you.
And I'm also hopeful for the China and US relationship. I want to make a metaphor. You know that for a movie, you have to have at least two main characters to get the story going, right? Even for the 007 movie, you have to have a Bond girl, right? And given the situation of the whole world, I think China and the USA is the most appropriate actors for this main roles. And I think that with a collaboration with our two countries, the movie of the whole world will be very fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you. So as I said, I hope that you all will leave optimistic and hopeful and encouraged by this remarkable, amazing group of young people who are going to change